Do Arsenal have the strongest squad in the Premier League? Now, that is the question I've been asked. And as much as I think it's quite easy and quick to say, no, Manchester City and Liverpool's is stronger, when you sit back and look at the squads, is it that simple? Is there an argument to say that depth wise, Arsenal are now the strongest in the Premier League? Now, I appreciate and understand that at the moment the transfer window is absolutely not over, and there's a few days left for some outgoings and incomings potentially for all clubs. I look at what Arsenal have done, and with Andrea Berta's appointment, we really are a different club now. Now, this transfer window has been exciting for many reasons, not just with Arsenal involved, with, of course, some of the big names that have come in already and probably are still to come in a few days. But I wanted to actually divulge into why Arsenal's squad is so different this season. And we've noticed already in the first couple of games, and particularly in pre-season, that everybody getting a kick and everybody getting fit has now shown just how strong we are in terms of how many players are at this football club. Now, of course, that's different for some of the individuals that Liverpool and Manchester City have got. And I think if we was to put together an 11 that Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal boast, you'll probably say that individually, Manchester City and Liverpool have got more world-class talent in their 11. But if you look at what a squad is and the actual question itself, who has the strongest squad, some would argue that Arsenal have more strength in depth than Liverpool and Manchester City. Now, of course, I'm not writing out other clubs here. I'm just looking at the three that people are telling me are probably going to be up there. Now, you might have to include Chelsea when you talk about depth as well. But I think right now, Chelsea probably have the weakest 11 out of the four clubs, but certainly in terms of strength and depth, can say that they have got players in every single position. Now, all of these four clubs have spent an amazing amount of money. I'm not saying that the club that have spent the least have done the better job. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about who has the best squad right now that can compete on all four fronts. And I genuinely think for the first time, there's an argument that Arsenal have the strongest squad depth. Now, I'm going to go through it myself and look at it. Now, if you was looking at 11, you'd be saying that we don't have potentially a Haaland, we don't have a Mo Salah, we don't have a Virgil van Dijk, we don't have potentially a Rodri. And I would argue that that's absolutely true. And it's fair to say that. But have we got players that are close to that? And have we got a squad that's better in terms of our bench to potentially the other three clubs? And I would actually argue and make a strong case that I don't think we're far off now. Now, you know my thoughts on the manager. You all know my thoughts that he has to get it across the line. And I have doubts and I have concerns that he can get it across the line and that we have the mentality and that he has the mentality to install the kind of mentality of the players to get across the line. But taking that aside and taking the manager away just for 1 minute and just looking at the players, this is a squad good enough to compete on all four fronts and to win a trophy. It might not be good enough across 38 games to win a Premier League. It might not be good enough to get across the line against a PSG or a Real Madrid in the Champions League final. But for me, I think it absolutely has what's needed to go and win a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup. Now, I so understand that some people are saying that's not enough. Some people are saying, really? 5-6 years and you got an FA Cup, which is what you won when you first walked in. Some are saying, what, a Carabao Cup, is that enough? Now, I hold those trophies in higher sentiment than other people because I lived in an era where I grew up seeing us win those and I have great memories from winning both the League Cup and the FA Cups, right? But I think we all know deep down that the Premier League and the Champions League is absolutely what we need. So let's take a look at Arsenal's squad in more detail. Let's start with the goalkeepers. We know we have David Raya. He has been probably one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League in the last couple of seasons. He's got the golden glove and he is definitely an absolute starter. And of late, some of the players that we've had to back him up have either caused some confusion around Ramsdale. Obviously, we had Neto last season. And some of the other goalkeepers that we've had that have been first or second choice have always caused a little bit of controversy or confusion. I think this is the absolute season that we all know. We have two fairly good goalkeepers, one of which is seen as one of the best in the league, the other which is seen at one time as the highest goalkeeper in terms of transfer fee, and that is, of course, Kepa. Now, having Raya and Kepa is quite clear to me. Raya is going to play the Champions League games and the FA Cup games, and I imagine, the Premier League games, and I imagine that Kepa will play the FA Cup games and the Carabao Cup games. That, for me, proves that we have a proper number one goalkeeper and a number two. So that's Raya and Kepa. We're good in goal. We move to right back. We've got Julian Timber, who I think is a better right back than Ben White, but make no qualms about it. Ben White proved his quality in pre-season, and when he has had to play for Arsenal, we all know what he can do at right back, particularly going forward, and in particular, focus on overlapping with Saka, which I think is something that he probably does better than Timber. Timber, for me, is one of the best fullbacks in the league. So we have two right backs there that absolutely are good enough. Then we come over to the left-back situation. It looks like Arsenal have decided at the moment Mikel Arteta's favourite is to go with Calafiori. He favours Calafiori at left back. But let's not forget what Lewis Skelly did last season. We have him at the moment as starter or backup left back. They're two left backs that are very different. I think Lewis Skelly definitely inverts more. Calafiori potentially is better going forward. I think attributes that Calafiori possesses are actually going forward, that he can score goals and he can get in play creative. I think Lewis Skelly is so good. And I think him in midfield is something I see a future with. Then we look at the centre backs. We go to the centre backs of Saliba and Gabriel. I think these two are the best partnership in European football. We've now built something where we can show a partnership that can absolutely compete at all levels and can be seen and recognised as elite when it comes to European defending. I think both of them individually will be wanted by most clubs. Certainly as a partnership is recognised as one of the best in Europe, certainly in this league. And then we look at the backups. Now, we've brought in Mosquera, who I have been impressed with the little that I have seen of him. I've seen little reels of him at Valencia, and obviously he looked great with his passing and his one-on-one defending and the fact that he's quite quick and he's got physical attributes. I like that. But I need to see it in an Arsenal shirt. I need to see more of it. But he certainly has been a good signing and one that can back up Saliba or can play right-sided centre-back or left-sided centre-back. And with Kivior looks like he's on his way out to Porto, it looks now like the signing of Incapié from Bayer Leverkusen is going to act as that left centre-back cover and left back. He's played both positions for Bayer Leverkusen and has done well there. Obviously, he was part of the invincible season at Bayer Leverkusen under Xabi Alonso. And I think that he can show some attributes that are quite aggressive as a centre-half. I don't like to compare any centre-half to Christian Romero at Tottenham, because he's quite rash, but I certainly see the aggression side. And he does look a lot more composed than Romero from what I'm being told and from what I've seen and witnessed. Now, when you watch on YouTube, it makes anybody look like Cannavaro, right? But when I look at it, I look at him and I've been quite impressed by what I've seen in terms of his passing, and the potential of him at only 23 looks very, very good. So we are stacked in defence with players that could be very versatile. Two fullbacks on the right, two fullbacks on the left. That can also play in other positions. We've obviously got two left-sided centre-backs now and two right-sided centre-backs. The defence is absolutely stacked. And I would argue that in the league, we are definitely on top when it comes to defence. Then we move into midfield, and a lot of people have said that it's looked quite unbalanced. Now, I would actually agree with that. Having said that, I think in the last couple of games that I've seen in pre-season and, of course, the start of the Premier League season, I think Rice and Zubamendi together in a double pivot looks so much better. Declan Rice, he is phenomenal. I want to see him cover every blade of grass. I want to see him a box-to-box midfielder. And I think Declan Rice, for me, is one that we will look at when his career ends and say he was absolutely successful and worth every penny when we signed him at the Arsenal. Zubamendi, very different to Thomas Partey. Zubamendi is a player that I like because on the ball, he's quite comfortable. He doesn't look to want to get rid of it all the time. He keeps it simple. He's got a great range of passing. Some of it is line breaking that I've seen, but actually it's keeping it quite simple, which I like. I think with Zubamendi, you're actually going to see him going forward than most people actually thought. I thought he was going to be one of those guys like Thomas Partey. He doesn't really cross the halfway line, but is quite happy to sit in that anchor. Zubamendi and Rice have been two pistons of an engine in the last few games, and that's really excited me. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that brings further. To back them up, we've got Christian Norgard, who's been brought in as a steady Eddie. I don't think he's going to be miles above what El Neni and Jorginho have brought to Arsenal. I think he's going to do a job, be a squad player. Brought in some experience, Premier League proven, captain material, wore the armband for Brentford, and a player that I think is just going to be seen as a reliable individual. Not too amazing on the ball, off the ball, very good, but I think he can get used to the way that we play and become very useful for Arsenal. Then you've got Rice, who can actually play in that six, and you move forward. You've got Mikel Merino. Now, Mikel Merino, I still think, has a lot to prove at Arsenal in that position. He certainly was brilliant towards the back end of last season when he was playing in more of a forward attack role. I think for me, he's got to show that he can do the role that Rice does as a box-to-box midfielder better. And I know that that's his natural position and that he was good at Real Sociedad for that. Maybe alongside Zubamendi, he can form a little bit more of a partnership when he is required. But certainly for me, I see him as a squad player, but a good squad player at that. Then we move on to the Martin Odegaard position. Now, Martin Odegaard has to have a good season, not just because he's the captain and the leader, but because he come off the back of a very, very poor very, very poor season. I don't think Martin Odegaard has shown his best for quite some time now. So I'm looking at that this season. To back him up, well, we've actually got 2 or 3 players now. We've got Ethan Ranieri, who at 18 looks phenomenal. At 17 years old, he came into this side, and for that season and that season only, he scored 10 goals, which is something unheard of. Saka wasn't doing it. Players that have come through the youth system wasn't doing it of old. Ethan Nwaneri's got a special talent and can play in a number of positions. He's covered for Saka when he was out, and of course, he's played more centrally. To start with in the pre-season, I've seen him play a lot more central, and I think that's definitely his future position. If you really want to go one further, you can say that we've now brought in Eze. Eze is a player that can play left wing, can play left attacking 8, and can play in the 10 if we were to use him there. That is unbelievable squad depth. And of course, I'm not even going to try to forget the absolute highlight of preseason, Max Dowman. 15 years old, can play out wide right, can play centrally in the middle. I think he's got an unbelievable future. Him and Ethan Nwaneri, I expect to see both of them make it at Arsenal. They're going to make it in football. But I think both of them will make it both at the club of Arsenal level and at international level also. So I'm really excited for what the prospect is for these two. Then, of course, we go over to the right-hand side. Bukayo Saka. Unfortunately, he's picked up an injury. We all probably assumed that he would probably have knocks this season off the back of such a severe hamstring injury. And it's frustrating that he's got injured already. But I expected this. That means we need cover. We all know how great Saka is. We all appreciate how good he is on the right-hand side and how pivotal and vital that he is. But when you look at the right-hand side backup now, you've got Noni Madueke. Now, this was a strange signing. I never understood why we paid this much money for him, but I can totally appreciate and understand why, on top of Eze, this signing makes sense now. If we were going to be bringing in Noni Madueke for that much money and it prevented us from getting another player in the same sort of area, I think it would be an absolutely stupid signing. But it hasn't been a one-off. It hasn't been we're picking him ahead of him. It hasn't been this is the player that we're going to make our star. He's clearly coming in to play both right wing and left wing. So for me, if he's covering those positions, I think it's a good signing. Then we come over to the left-hand side, and I still feel that we are lacking an out-and-out left winger here. I'm not sure that Eze is that guy. I think what Eze can do is come into the middle and be more central attacking, but can do a job on the left. I think Trossard, likewise, is probably more of a false 9 now and backup that can cover across the front 3. And then, of course, we've got Martinelli. Martinelli is a player that needs a good season. I'm not sure how much football he's going to get, but believe it or not, I think it might be a backhanded compliment. I think it might be good for him. I don't think he needs that pressure. I think he needs to be seen as a squad player, not the absolute pivotal left winger that we need him to be, and the vital player down that left-hand side that needs to make everything happen. I think he needs a break. I think his confidence has been knocked. And he's a player that I think had so much potential at 17, 18, that we're expecting him to be like R9 and Ronaldinho levels in this fan base at times. That was never going to happen. He was always going to be a very good player for us. And I think he still is a very good player for us. The problem we've got is I need to see it more. I need to see it consistently. And I can't keep sticking up for Martinelli back in 2023, where we're in, 25, 26 season. He needs to go now. He needs to go now, and he needs to deliver. And hopefully he will this season. So we've got strength over there. I think we might need another out-and-out winger. Maybe a Rodrigo would be the absolute dream, but maybe it's a pipe dream. And then, of course, we go to the striker. Now, the striker situation has now been solved, it seems. Victor Gyökeres is our summer signing, our proper striker, our prolific number 9, the one that we're all looking to get a serious amount of goals for Arsenal. He's done well. He started well. He hasn't looked 100% fit, but now looking sharper at the weekend against Leeds, it looks to me now like we've got something that we can work with. And finally, someone who is a bagsman in front of goal. That is exactly what we needed. Victor Gyökeres, I'm buzzing for this signing. And then, of course, we've really got 2 players behind him that maybe people have forgotten about due to injuries. We've got Kai Havertz, who I think could be a squad player. He's not someone I look at long-term and think, please keep, because he would absolutely be lost without him. But it's someone that can come on, give us a different dimension and actually score a few goals for us, as we've seen already in pre-season. And then you have to look and not forget about Gabriel Jesus, who now is looking fitter and fitter by the day. Let's see what sort of a season he's going to have. It doesn't look like he's going to be moved on at the moment. If we are going to be getting any bids, I imagine they'll come in January or the next summer. It looks like he's going to be part of this squad. He can play across the front 3. He probably is better out wide. But for me, can play in that 9, as we've seen back in 22-23 when he looked electric. That is a serious squad. Now comes, lastly, who do we play and start on the bench? Now, I think if everybody's fit, David Raya's in goal. We're going to have Timber at right back. You're going to have Saliba at right-sided centre-back and Gabriel at left-sided centre-back. At the moment, it looks like Calafiori is in favour at left-back. And the 3 in midfield is going to be a trio of Zubamendi, Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard when everyone's fit. And then I think when everyone's fit in the front 3, there's a couple of things you can do. But I think right now, it's going to be Bukayo Saka right wing, Eza left wing, and Gyökeres as the forward, which means you've got, what, 9 or 10 subs? We've actually got around 11, 12, 13 players extra than that. And that's without the extras like Fabio Vieira, Lukonga, Zinchenko, Reece Nelson, these guys that all potentially need to move this summer still. So who gets on the bench? Well, Kepa is definitely one of the places, which means I think we have 8 or 9 positions left to put on the bench because we can use 5 subs now. That means you have to pick your best bench from the following players. And I'm going to let you do it in the comments and you tell me what you think the strongest bench will be out of the following players. Kepa's going to be one of them. That means we've got 8 or 9 players to pick for when everyone's fit on that bench. And those players are Lewis Skelly, Ben White. If we sign him, obviously we've got Kivior at the moment, but it looks like it will probably be the Leverkusen centre half. And then Mosquera. So they're all potential subs at the moment in defence. Then you've got the actual central midfield options of Norgard, Marino, Ethan Wanieri, Max Dowman. Then you go wide and up top. On top of what I've already said, that you can only select a few from, you've got Noni Madueke, you've got Gabriel Martinelli, Leandro Trossard, Kai Havertz, and Gabriel Jesus. This is a monster squad at the moment. Now, some might say that some of those players might even have to be moved on. People have spoken about if we got an offer for Jesus, if we got an offer for Martinelli. Trossard looked like at one stage he was going to potentially look like leaving. I think we have to be realistic and say that we actually do have a lot of players now at the Arsenal. With 8 players coming in under Andrea Berta, we really have strengthened the squad depth of this squad. So I wanted to ask you, do we have the strongest squad in the Premier League? Do we struggle when it comes to who makes it on the bench? And what would your strongest bench look like? Let me know in the comment section. People, it's been a pleasure. Make sure you do me a favor, hit like and hit subscribe, and make sure you are following OK Jerseys, who are sponsors to this video. The link's in the description. Go and get your first kit, second kit, third kit, retro kits, international kits, whatever club you support, they can sort you out for very cheap jerseys. Make sure you go check them out. We'll see you in the next one. We're out of here, people.